Israeli forces have resumed ground operations in the Gaza Strip, and the Houthis put President Trump's red line to the test. Like right away, they crossed it. Just a couple days ago, Trump said the next shots fired by the Houthis against Americans, we will view as being fired from Iran. And right away, we saw missiles and drones being fired at U.S. ships in the Red Sea. So we'll see. There has been a U.S. response already, but I don't think it's out of the cards that we see some sort of military action taken against Iran in the next couple days or weeks. Now, starting out with Israel here and then moving over to the Houthis, because this is all very much interconnected. Some IDF statements here. They said, over the past day, IDF troops began targeted ground activities in the central and southern Gaza Strip in order to expand the security zone and to create a partial buffer between northern and southern Gaza. As a part of the ground activities, the troops expanded their control further to the center of the Netzarim corridor. That corridor is the strip that has run through the center of the Gaza Strip to the coast. It's what Israel has long used throughout the combat operations in the Gaza Strip recently. It's what they use to kind of keep a lot of their troops resupplied and a major focus of moving in and out of the Gaza Strip. It looks like they're trying to reopen that now. So one thing to keep in mind is this is territory that Israel fought over and took from Hamas within the last year at least, and they gave it back, and now they're going back in to recapture some of that territory. A lot of what we're hearing out of Israel right now is that this time it's going to be different. There's going to be different tactics, different process, different targeting. Who knows exactly what that means when the rubber meets the road, but it does look like they're going to be approaching the Hamas threat and the recovery of the hostages a little bit differently now than they were last time they went into Gaza. Now, this follows a series of Israeli airstrikes all across the Gaza Strip for a couple days now. Again, moving to the IDF statement here, they say the IDF struck dozens of terrorists, terror infrastructure sites, and launching areas in the Gaza Strip. One of the targets was the command center of Hamas's Daraj Tufa battalion, which was used to plan attacks on Israeli civilians and IDF troops. And there were also a significant number of high-value targets eliminated in these strikes, according to Israel, including the new head of Hamas in Gaza. So they say over the past day, the IDF and ISA struck dozens of terror targets and terrorists throughout the Gaza Strip, including Hamas commanders. The strikes were conducted to damage the terrorist organization's military and governmental capabilities and to remove threats to the state of Israel and its citizens. And the IDF put out this graphic that I'll share here, showing 4 senior leaders that they say were eliminated in these strikes. My apologies in the pronunciation here, but you got it on the screen so you can see how badly I mess it up. First off here, the new head of Hamas in Gaza, they say was killed, Essam al-Dailis. We've got Ahmed Amar Abdullah al-Hatta, the Hamas Minister of Justice. Bahajat Hassan Mohammed Abu Sultan, head of the Hamas Internal Security. And then Mahmoud Marzouk Ahmed Abu Wafda, the Hamas Interior Minister. So, look, if that's the result of just a day or two of airstrikes, it means that clearly Israel was watching the Gaza Strip pretty closely during the course of this ceasefire and knew exactly where these guys would be and what it would take to eliminate them in just the first night or two of airstrikes. Now, we do have casualty figures coming from the Hamas-affiliated Palestinian Ministry of Health. They say that at least 436 people were killed, including at least 183 children, 94 women, 34 elderly people, and 125 men, adding that at least 678 others are injured, and many more still remain trapped under the rubble. Now, turning to the Israeli defense minister, talking about this operation kicking off, this is Defense Minister Katz. In a statement to the people of Gaza, he said, quote, "The first Sinwar destroyed Gaza, and the second Sinwar will completely devastate it. Soon, the evacuation of civilians from combat zones will resume, and what follows will be far more severe. You will bear the full price. Return the hostages and remove Hamas. The alternative is total destruction and devastation." Now, again, we're waiting to see what this new method looks like for Israel going after Hamas, trying to clear out that threat and recover the hostages at the same time. We, of course, saw all the footage from the ceasefire where Hamas was holding real parades. Now, a lot of that was kind of shown in a way to make it look like there were more Hamas militants than there actually were on scene. But, you know, when you look at the number of vehicles, the personnel, the uniforms, the weapons, clearly there's still a pretty significant Hamas element in Gaza that the Israeli forces now are on the ground moving in to deal with. Now, shifting over to the Houthis, this terrorist group down in Yemen that's been slinging rockets and drones at just about anything that moves through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. I think it's worth starting here with a statement from President Trump a couple days ago. This was on the 17th, March 17th. And we read this in a previous video, but I think it's worth going through again to kind of set the stage for what all of this means. Trump said, quote, "Let nobody be fooled. The hundreds of attacks made by the Houthis, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen who are hated by the Yemeni people, all emanate from and are created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists from which they've lost control, but they haven't lost control. They're dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran, and Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire." That's an important context as we get into what the Houthis have done in the last not even 24 hours, like barely 12 hours here. So in a statement yesterday afternoon here, local time in the U.S., the Houthi military spokesperson put out a statement saying that they had launched a Palestine-2, what they refer to as a hypersonic ballistic missile at the Israeli Nevatim air base. Israeli sources are saying that that missile was effectively intercepted before entering Israeli airspace, so no effect there. But again, according to Trump, that is the same as Iran firing on Israel, which I know we wouldn't like. It might not rise to the level of the United States actually taking direct military action. But then the Houthis did actually carry out attacks against U.S. ships. And at this point, I think we can confirm that they at least tried. In past instances, there's definitely been some claims. We don't really have anything to show for it. In fact, the Pentagon spokesperson at one point said one of the strikes missed the United States or the U.S. ships and personnel by over 100 miles. It's like, what the hell is that? In this case, we've got a little bit of evidence to show that they did certainly try to hit U.S. ships. So the Houthis put out another statement saying after they identified that the United States was getting ready to carry out attacks into Yemen, they said, quote, "In response, the missile force, naval forces, and air force carried out a joint military operation using a number of cruise missiles and drones targeting the U.S. aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and a number of enemy warships. This is the fourth targeting of the U.S. carrier and associated groups within the last 72 hours. And when I'm talking about the proof here that this did occur, we actually had U.S. Central Command put out this video here showing that at least a couple Houthi drones were intercepted with what they say are short-range, are relatively short-range guided rockets. So interesting system for air defense, but the drones are relatively slow-moving. But if we're shooting those down with rockets, that means they're kind of close to U.S. ships. Those rockets don't have too awful long of a range. I guess technically they could be coming from an aircraft, but either way, the big picture here is that the Houthis certainly did launch yet another attack against U.S. ships. And the reason for doing so, according to the Houthis, again, we've talked about this, they are very consistent in their messaging. They say the Yemeni armed forces affirm that the American aggression will not deter the steadfast and struggling Yemen from fulfilling its religious, moral, and humanitarian duties towards the Palestinian people, and it will escalate its military operations against the Zionist enemy unless the brutal aggression on Gaza stops and the siege is lifted. I feel like we have to reiterate that anytime we're talking about the Houthis because they have, again, I don't like them, not one bit. It's a bad group, top to bottom. Credit where credit's due. They've been very consistent in their messaging. The minute they say aggression stops in Gaza and the siege is lifted, that could bring about an end to the Houthi attacks. Now, big picture, that doesn't necessarily resolve the issue here because we just identified that the Houthis found a way to essentially shut down international shipping through one of the major waterways. So, like, we've got to figure that out, even if they were to stop completely tomorrow. But nonetheless, the messaging has been relatively consistent. Now, the United States, not necessarily in response to this, but also yesterday carried out our fourth wave of airstrikes in the last 72 hours against Houthi targets in Yemen. As of now, we don't have any additional data on the target sets or what may have been struck or focused on here versus previous, but we did get some footage showing, again, aircraft taking off from the Harry S. Truman aircraft carrier, and then what appear to be some Tomahawk missiles being launched from other U.S. ships in the area. So something to keep an eye on here for the next couple of days is National Security Advisor Mike Waltz just a couple days ago when talking about the Houthis and their connection to Iran, which no doubt there is a very, very strong connection there. Waltz talked about the possibility of going after IRGC or Iranian targets. He talked about IRGC trainers, Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps trainers, maybe in Yemen, maybe elsewhere throughout the Middle East. I probably wouldn't write off the possibility of going after a, tit for tat, right? If Yemen's going to shoot at our boats, I think it's probably in the cards that we target an Iranian warship. Keep that in mind. And then maybe even the possibility of striking targets somewhere inside of Iran. I wouldn't view this as anywhere near the nuclear sites are not going to get hit because of this. We're not going to go after senior Iranian government officials because of this, but we'll see. Trump is either going to back down from this red line or he's going to meet that threat, which probably means some sort of limited military strike against, again, IRGC trainers, maybe a Iranian naval vessel. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.